In a city where the rain never ceased and the neon lights painted the dark streets in shifting hues of blue and red, a boy was born into a world of secrets and shadows. From the moment his eyes first opened, the undercurrents of betrayal, loss, and vengeance were woven into his destiny. His father, a man of honor and courage, had once walked the fine line between law and the murky realm of justice, always believing that the truth could redeem even the most tarnished souls. But one fateful night, when the city was drenched in both rain and sorrow, the man was murdered by a figure as enigmatic as the night itself. That night, as a chilling wind swept through empty alleyways and whispered warnings through cracked windows, a seed of resolve was planted deep within the heart of the young boy. Growing up amid the echoes of his father's last words, the boy learned early that the world was not as simple as black and white. Instead, it was painted with shades of gray, where every truth was layered with lies, and every smile hid a secret. His mother, a silent pillar of strength, often reminded him that sometimes justice was not served by the law, but by the will of one determined heart. As the years passed, the boy, named Ayaan, moved from being an innocent child to a man with an unquenchable thirst for truth. The memories of his father's warm laughter and steadfast guidance became his compass in a world that had taught him both beauty and brutality in equal measure. Ayaan's childhood was punctuated by sleepless nights filled with nightmares of that dreadful evening. In his dreams, the silhouette of his father's murderer loomed large, a dark figure whose eyes glimmered with a cruel satisfaction as he vanished into the labyrinth of the city's underbelly. Determined to uncover every shred of evidence, Ayaan began to train himself in the art of observation, blending the cautious determination of a seasoned detective with the raw, passionate intensity of a man on a mission. Every secret alley, every hushed conversation in smoky backrooms, every cryptic message scribbled on crumbling walls became a part of his self-taught curriculum. The transformation was not instantaneous. Ayaan's early attempts at tracking down the elusive criminal were met with dead ends and cryptic clues that only deepened the mystery. Yet with every failure, he grew more resilient, more ingenious. He spent long hours in the dim light of libraries poring over old case files, interviewing those who might hold a fragment of the past, and slowly piecing together the jigsaw puzzle of his father's death. His relentless pursuit led him to uncover a network of corrupt officials, double agents, and silent enforcers who had long since blurred the line between crime and order. In these shadowy circles, the truth was a commodity traded at a premium, and Ayaan soon learned that his enemy was not merely a lone assassin, but part of a far more sinister web of deceit. The city itself seemed to pulse with secrets as Ayaan navigated its labyrinthine streets. His investigation brought him into contact with a cast of characters who were as haunted as he was. There was Zura, a streetwise informant with eyes that had seen too much and a past riddled with regret. Malik, an ex-cop whose faith in the system had been shattered by years of witnessing injustice. And an elusive journalist known only as the Raven, whose articles hinted at a conspiracy stretching to the highest echelons of power. Each of these individuals offered pieces of a larger puzzle, an intricate tapestry of betrayal where loyalties were as fragile as glass. Ayaan discovered that his father had once been entangled with a clandestine group determined to expose the corruption festering in the heart of the city. That very same group had paid a steep price, a price that had been exacted in blood on that tragic night. As the investigation deepened, so too did the danger. Ayaan found himself constantly shadowed by the presence of those who would see him silenced. Anonymous threats began to arrive, scribbled on scrap paper and left on his doorstep. His phone rang in the middle of the night with voices whispering in a language he almost understood, a language of retribution and warning. But instead of retreating into fear, Ayaan embraced the peril. Every new clue, every narrow escape from ambush, fueled his determination to bring the murderer to justice. His transformation from grieving son to relentless avenger was complete. With every passing day, his plan took shape like an intricate mosaic, each piece meticulously positioned to reveal the final picture of the man who had shattered his family. It was on a cold winter evening, as the city lay under a heavy blanket of mist, that the breakthrough came. Hidden away in an abandoned warehouse, Ayaan discovered evidence that would connect the murderer to a powerful network of criminals. In a dusty box tucked behind forgotten relics, he found documents bearing the insignia of a secretive organization, alongside photos of high-ranking officials whose names were carefully concealed from the public eye. The documents painted a damning portrait of a conspiracy that had cost more lives than could ever be recounted. With the evidence in hand, Ayaan knew that the time for subtlety had passed. The hunt for the murderer had become an all-out war, a war waged not just with physical force, but with the weapon of undeniable truth. Yet, even as he closed in on his target, Ayaan's path was fraught with treachery. The elusive assassin had anticipated every move, countering with his own network of informants and traps. A clandestine meeting was arranged in a derelict part of the city, where every shadow could hide an enemy and every sound was amplified by the weight of suspense. In that decaying meeting hall, amid flickering fluorescent lights and the distant hum of sirens, Ayaan finally came face to face with the man who had haunted his dreams. The assassin was not the monstrous figure he had imagined, but a calm, almost courteous man whose eyes betrayed nothing. Their confrontation was a chess match of wits and wills, each trying to outmaneuver the other with razor-sharp precision. In the tense moments before the final showdown, Ayaan's mind churned with memories of his father's teachings, the sacrifices made by those who had stood up against corruption, and the inevitable clash between good and evil. The conversation between them was a slow dance of revelation and regret. The assassin, whose name was revealed to be Riaz, explained in a measured tone that his actions were dictated by orders from a higher power, a clandestine authority that had orchestrated events long before either of them had taken up arms. Riaz's words resonated with a haunting truth. In a world where loyalty was bought and sold, even the act of vengeance was nothing more than a pawn in a larger game. Despite this chilling admission, Ayaan's resolve did not waver. The burden of his father's death, the countless lives lost to the unchecked corruption, and his own quest for justice all converged in that singular moment. With a swift motion born of years of training and inner torment, he overpowered Riaz in a brutal struggle that left both men battered and breathless. Just as the first rays of dawn broke through the grimy windows of the warehouse, the sound of sirens grew louder, a stark reminder that the city's guardians were never far away. In a twist of fate that Ayaan had not foreseen, the police arrived not to celebrate his victory, but to detain him. The meticulously gathered evidence was enough to implicate Riaz, and the authorities, in a race to salvage a semblance of order, arrested him on the spot. However, the very laws that Ayaan had long held in contempt for their inability to deliver swift justice now turned against him. Despite his critical role in capturing a dangerous criminal, the clandestine nature of his investigation and the methods he employed raised questions about vigilante justice. The legal system, rigid and uncompromising, could not overlook the circumstantial evidence linking Ayaan to unsanctioned operations. In a bitter twist of irony, the young man who had dared to challenge a corrupt network found himself shackled by the very system he had once despised. As Ayaan was led away in handcuffs under a sky streaked with the hues of a rising sun, the city around him seemed to hold its breath. His eyes, however, burned with a quiet defiance. In the sterile, unforgiving light of the interrogation room, he recounted every detail of his journey, from the eerie silence of his childhood home to the perilous nights spent hunting a phantom in the urban wilderness. His words were not those of a criminal, but of a man who had borne witness to the darkest facets of human nature and had chosen to fight back, even at the cost of his own freedom. Behind the bars of a high-security facility, Ayaan's mind raced with memories and unanswered questions. In the solitude of his confinement, he replayed every moment of his pursuit of justice. The lines between right and wrong had blurred, and the clarity of his purpose had been clouded by the very darkness he had sought to vanquish. Even as he faced the possibility of a lengthy imprisonment, there was a spark within him, a belief that his actions would eventually force society to confront its own failures, to question the moral compromises made in the name of order. His personal vendetta had morphed into something larger, a symbol of resistance against a system that had long forsaken those who dared to challenge it. In the echoing corridors of the prison, whispers of Ayaan's exploits began to circulate, gradually transforming him from a mere vigilante into a reluctant folk hero. Those who had once lived in fear of a corrupt establishment now saw in him a mirror of their own suppressed desire for change. Yet, even as public opinion swayed in his favor, the legal process remained unyielding. Ayaan's trial was a media circus, a relentless barrage of conflicting narratives, where every detail was dissected and every motive questioned. The courtroom became an arena where the forces of retribution and redemption clashed in a spectacle that was as much about symbolism as it was about justice. Throughout the proceedings, Ayaan maintained a stoic silence, his eyes reflecting the turbulent mix of pain and determination that had defined his life. His defense argued that while the law must remain the cornerstone of society, it was also crucial to address the systemic failures that had driven him to act outside its boundaries. The trial, with its labyrinthine legal maneuvers and political undercurrents, slowly revealed the intricate web of alliances that had allowed corruption to flourish. High-ranking officials, business magnates, and even members of the law enforcement community found themselves implicated in the sprawling scandal that now threatened to upend the status quo. Outside the courthouse, protests erupted. Citizens demanded not only Ayaan's freedom, but also a sweeping reform of the institutions that had long been compromised by greed and indifference. The media, hungry for stories of righteous defiance, painted Ayaan as the embodiment of a new kind of justice, a justice that, while raw and unpolished, struck at the very heart of an unjust system. Even as his legal fate hung in a balance, Ayaan's silent testimony to the brutality of a corrupt society resonated with countless individuals who had once felt voiceless and abandoned. In the midst of this turmoil, a startling revelation emerged. Detailed investigations uncovered that Ayaan's father had been on the verge of exposing a network of collusion that spanned continents, a network that had manipulated governments and exploited the vulnerable for profit. This revelation cast the entire narrative in a new light. The man who had once been revered as a beacon of integrity was now seen as a martyr, a victim of a power structure that was far more expansive and insidious than anyone had ever imagined. The public's empathy for Ayaan deepened, and his struggle transformed into a broader quest for accountability, a call for the dismantling of the entrenched system that had bred so much suffering. As the trial reached its climax, the air inside the courtroom was thick with anticipation. The final verdict would not only determine Ayaan's fate, but would also set a precedent for the many who had suffered under the weight of corruption. In an unexpected twist, key witnesses came forward, risking their lives to testify against the conspiracies that had long lurked behind closed doors. Their testimonies painted a damning picture of a society in decay, where the quest for personal vengeance had merged with the pursuit of collective justice. In those final moments before the judge rendered his decision, Ayaan's mind drifted back to the quiet moments of his childhood, a time when his father's gentle laughter and steadfast ideals had offered a glimmer of hope in a turbulent world. That memory, though now shrouded by the harsh realities of betrayal and retribution, remained his guiding light. As the judge pronounced a sentence that was both a condemnation and a reluctant acknowledgement of his righteous cause, Ayaan's eyes shone with a mix of sorrow and acceptance. The verdict was a compromise, a delicate balance between the imperatives of the law and the undeniable evidence of systemic failure. In the years that followed, Ayaan's story became legend, a cautionary tale of what happens when the pursuit of justice collides with the rigid structures of an uncompromising system. His life, marked by personal sacrifice and the heavy burden of loss, continued to inspire movements for reform and accountability. While the scars of his journey were etched deeply into his soul, They also served as a testament to the enduring human spirit and its relentless capacity to fight for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. Behind the iron bars and the sterile confines of a prison cell, Ayaan found solace in the belief that his struggle had not been in vain. The echoes of his father's legacy, the testimonies of those who had dared to speak out, and the collective roar of a populace demanding change had all contributed to an awakening. In hushed conversations and fervent speeches across the city, his name became synonymous with the idea that true justice could only be achieved when the voices of the marginalized rose against the tide of corruption. Even as he awaited further legal proceedings and the possibility of eventual release, Ayaan remained a silent sentinel of truth, a man who had sacrificed everything in the name of justice. The saga of Ayaan, the boy who had grown into a man by avenging his father's murder, had thus evolved into something far greater than a simple tale of personal revenge. It had morphed into a chronicle of a society at a crossroads, a narrative where the lines between right and wrong blurred and the cost of silence was measured in blood and broken dreams. The city, with all its secrets and shadows, would never be the same again. And though Ayaan's journey had led him to the confines of a cell, his legacy continued to burn like a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that even in a world overrun by corruption, the quest for truth and justice was a flame that could never be extinguished. As the rain began to fall once more on the city's rain-soaked pavements, the story of Ayaan echoed in every whispered conversation, every protest chant, and every silent vow of retribution. His life, a tapestry of love, loss, and relentless defiance, had become a mirror reflecting the imperfections of a system that had failed its people. Yet, in that mirror shone the face of a man who had dared to challenge fate itself, whose unwavering determination had transformed personal tragedy into a movement for change. And so, the legend lived on, an eternal reminder that sometimes the path to justice is paved not by those who abide by the rules, but by those brave enough to rewrite them with their own hands. The city skyline, once dominated by towering monuments of indifference, gradually gave way to grassroots efforts aimed at reform and transparency. In quiet corners of the urban sprawl, community leaders and activists gathered to honor Ayaan's memory, vowing to dismantle the networks of corruption that had once seemed invincible. His story, full of harrowing suspense, intricate mysteries, and dramatic twists, had sparked a renaissance, a call to arms for every individual who had ever been silenced by fear or disenfranchised by an unjust system. In the final analysis, the saga of Ayaan was not merely a tale of retribution, but an exploration of the human condition, a meditation on the fine line that separates right from wrong, justice from vengeance, and order from chaos. It was a story of resilience in the face of insurmountable odds, of hope emerging from the darkest recesses of despair, and of a single man's journey to reclaim his father's honor in a world that had long forgotten the meaning of justice. As the city continued to heal and rebuild, the memory of that relentless pursuit of truth served as both a warning and an inspiration, a timeless narrative that whispered to every heart that dared to dream of a better tomorrow. In that unyielding darkness, where every echo of footsteps on rain-dampened streets carried the promise of retribution, Ayaan's legacy endured. His journey, marked by betrayal, heartbreak, and the bittersweet triumph of capturing his father's killer, ultimately revealed that the quest for justice is an eternal struggle, a battle fought not on battlefields, but in the silent corridors of the human soul. And as the night surrendered to the first light of a new day, the story of Ayaan remained an open invitation for those who believed that every act of courage, no matter how steeped in sorrow, had the power to ignite a revolution of the heart.